Hey guys, Stove here, and today we're going to do a little talk about the 3.5 settings and keybinds on the new flight model. I've had a couple requests to do this video, so we're going to go ahead and jump into that, and I'll show you my key bindings and settings based off of my experiences in game and how they help or hurt me. That way you can kind of tailor your settings for mouse and keyboard the best way that you want, and so that you can fly the way that you want, okay? So again, and these are just recommendations. This is not like a hard guide or anything, guys. This is what I do. This is what I use to fly. And you'll see that I do have a little Maka keyboard down on my bottom right corner. And I am in free flight. And when I get out of the key bindings, I'll show you how that works. And I'll show you kind of what I mean by having all the settings the way I do. Okay, so here we go. In the game settings menu, first of all, make sure cinematic cameras is off, of course. Most of this stuff is really the same as before. This stuff is really going to be up to you, the G-Safe when boosting, things like that, of course. Flight lead pip reticle. Now, of course, I use the pip lead reticle, not the lag reticle that a lot of people use. For various reasons, I do find that the lead pip is better. Mainly because it's always there for my target. Like I don't just have to aim at a little triangle if the target's far away. I'll always have the pip to shoot at 2K plus. Whereas if you're just using the lag pip, at further ranges you just have to shoot at a center of a triangle. You're not really not shooting at anything. So I really do like flight lead pip better. So again, this is personal preference. But the new setting you really want to watch out for here is this one right here, snap aim to pip target. This is just another layer of auto aim aside from ESP. So I turn it off because it does create this slowing down sensation when you're around the pip. Because again, this is a layer of auto aim. I would recommend turning it off right now because adding too many layers of auto aim is just not good, and it's going to cause so many complications, and it's going to cause your ship to like you'll be trying to turn towards it or follow the pip, and then as you get closer to the pip your mouse will slow down and your turn speed will slow down. That's because of things like this in ESP. Alright, so I turn this off for right now. Play around with this, guys. That's the best thing I could give you right now is play around with this. Go into like Arena Commander, Swarm, and then just kind of shoot at targets with it on and then with it off, and you'll see what I'm talking about. It's not going to be like a snap. What you're going to feel is when you get close to the pip, again, your mouse speed is going to slow down, and it's going to feel like there's some mouse smoothing in there and things like that, or some mouse acceleration, which you don't want. So I would recommend turning it off for that reason. But again, play around with it and see if it helps you. It might. I don't know. All right, but this is the big one that a lot of people don't realize exists, and you should play around with it and make sure that you do like it on or off, because this is going to affect your aim in game. Okay, this is going to affect you in combat ability. So this is pretty big right here. As far as graphics go, nothing really special here. If you really, well, I did figure out, if you want windowed, sometimes these will both be on, the full screen and the windowed. So if this says yes and this says yes, it'll just cancel out the windowed mode. Make sure this is no and this is yes, and then you'll get actual full screen windowed mode, just so you guys know out there. For some reason, for a long time, I had both of these on, just thinking that it would default to windowed mode. It does not do that. So make sure this is off and this is on if you want windowed. Sharpening I have up just a little bit. Field of view I play at 86. I don't really mess around with this. And motion blur I turn off, of course. And that's really it. Quality set to low just for FPS reasons, and of course my resolution. Nothing really big there. Audio, again, I have my music volume turned down right now. I was listening to music, but this is just my normal settings. For controls, really nothing's changed over here on the curves, except on the mouse sensitivity side. I do bring it up to 31, okay? Now, before you guys jump on this, I want to explain to you guys something about mouse control and everything like that. There's two ways that people hold their mouse and control it, okay? It's just like using a pencil or a pen when you write. Some people write and use their mouse with just their wrist, and they pivot off of their wrist and just move their wrist. Their arm stays stationary and their wrist just moves, okay? The same reason being is when they hold a mouse like I do, because I'm one of those people, I hold it in a claw. Okay, I don't. My palm is not on my mouse. I hold my mouse like a claw, where my back of my wrist is kind of resting on the table, okay? Like literally like the back of my hand, where my wrist meets my hand, is resting on the back of my table here, and I just pivot off that and I move it like a claw, okay? So I need high sensitivity because my mouse range is not that far. I can use a really small mouse pad if I want to. I'm really just moving my mouse up and down, back and forth, maybe 2, 3, 4 inches max, okay? And I can get all this range. So that's why I play with high sensitivity and high DPI. I play around 1200 DPI and high sensitivity in games, FPSs especially. It's always worked for me. I know a lot of people play it like 400 and 800, but I've come to find that those people are the other side of things, where they write with their arm, meaning their elbow kind of guides them, and their pen where they write. And then because of that, they have a long range with their mouse, you know, and they can get away with lower sensitivity because they're using a lot of mouse pad, because again, their elbow is guiding their arm. So if you're one of these people, you're going to have to choose a lower sensitivity, obviously, and don't base around my sensitivity settings around that, okay? Just know that it's going to be based on the way that you use and hold your mouse, high or low sensitivity here, okay? I just kind of want to point that out really quickly, because a lot of people really don't understand that. But that's why I play on high DPI, because I'm a clawer, okay? I claw my mouse, and I don't like to move it very far. So I do this, and I feel like I have perfect control over it. You know, I can move it right there, I can move it right there, I can move it right there. So, again, just personal preference here, but I do keep my sensitivity on 31 and my aim down sight sensitivity 51. Again, personal preference here, guys, but just make sure your zoom multipliers and your mouse acceleration are off. You don't want any of this on. This is really going to hurt you, especially with the ESP and the auto aims, so don't do that. And now the big stuff for key bindings. So this is all new, of course, in 3.5. There is no advanced profile anymore. There used to be there's a basic and then an advanced in 3.4. That is gone. So we'll just go ahead and hop into all the key bindings, and I don't think I really changed anything here. I think I changed my eject back to left Alt L because it was in 3.4. Again, I changed back to my seat to Alt F because I had this in 3.4. It was always Alt F. I don't like Y being my exit seat. Alt F is great for me, and that's always like my mount and unmount button in MMOs. Usually it's Alt F, so that's kind of natural. Self-destruct, left Alt backspace, of course. Now, the coolers and decreased cooler rate, these don't do anything. I have these bound. Of course, I don't have a numpad anymore. This is when I had an actual keyboard with a numpad. I do not have a numpad anymore on my keyboard, so of course I can't use this anymore. But these settings don't exist anyway, so don't worry about that. You don't have to have it. I was testing these back when I did have a keyboard with numpad to see if they worked. They do not. I kept these as they were, and under view, I don't think I changed anything here. There's really nothing too changed except for look behind, which is my left Alt 1. Okay, I did change that, of course. And my dynamic zoom in and out, because your limiter is now bound to mouse wheel and zoom is also bound to mouse wheel, you're going to have to come into dynamic zoom in and dynamic zoom out, and I just changed them to left Alt with mouse wheel up and left Alt with mouse wheel down. That way I can still zoom without messing up my limiter if it's on or off. Kind of compounding hotkeys here, and that's a good way to fix it right there, is just put a modifier on your zoom and then you'll be fine. And again, left Alt mouse wheel is zoom in and out. That's just, again, something you can do, because you're going to have to figure out something to do with your view in your zoom, because again, your limiter is on your mouse wheel now, which kind of messes things up if you did have mouse wheel keybinds like I did. So movement, again, nothing's really changed here except for the way you move in game and the new flight model. I do keep roll, Q and E. My match target velocity is still M. This doesn't really work though, I don't think. I haven't really tested it in this flight model. The big thing here, the really big thing here, and now that you can actually unbind mouse wheel, if you can unbind your toggler if you want. If you don't want to use a limiter, you can go ahead and unbind that now. This is just mouse wheel. You just click this off and then boom. You have no more limiter on your mouse or your mouse wheel, and then you can change it to like Alt W up here, so speed limiter increase. You can go Alt W, Alt S for decrease, something like that. If you want to move your limiter that way you can free up your mouse wheel for other things like keybinds. If you did have that before, I used to have my countermeasures on my mouse wheel, so like mouse up was use them, mouse back was switch them, things like that. But now, of course, I worked around that, and I do use the limiter on my mouse wheel. The best thing you can really do for your limiter, by the way, is come down here and turn this on. This is not bound by default, and this is probably the best hotkey in the whole new 3.5 flight model for you, okay? And this is the speed limiter toggle. Now, cruise control is bound to C by default. That's okay. You're going to leave it to C, like I did here, okay? But you're just going to come down here and you're going to highlight it, and then you're going to tap Y, and that's going to turn cruise control into double tap C, okay? So now I have my limiter on C and my cruise control on C, and you're going to think to yourself, does that overlap? Does that mess you up? No, it really doesn't. So I'm going to show you that right now. Again, I do have a keyboard down at the bottom of your screen, so as you can see, when I hit C, my limiter comes up, and I can use my mouse wheel to control it where I want to, okay? There it is. It's on, it's off, it's on, it's off, okay? It's on again. And now, let's just say I want a cruise control. There you go, cruise control. And now I can kind of control my limiter with cruise control on, double tap off, turn off limiter, okay? So this is my reasoning behind it. It has never messed me up in game, having it to double tap like this and turning it on and off with C. I guess the other way to do it, if you're, I guess, going for ergonomics wise and things like that, we'll go back to movement, is to bind your limiter toggle to middle mouse button, right? Because your limiter is on mouse wheel scroll anyways, so you can do that as well. You can just bind this to middle mouse button. I use my middle mouse button for targeting sub-targets, and it's always been my sub-target key, and it will remain that way, so that's why I do it this way. I use C as a double-purpose hotkey. Why don't you use V right next to C? V is now my new switch countermeasure hotkey, and G is my launch countermeasure hotkey now. So they're not on scroll wheel anymore, and that's where they had to go. So I had to double up C for that reason. All right. What about space break? You're thinking to yourself, what about space break? Well, I changed my space break to, where is it? This one right here, mouse button 4. Okay, and this is important, and I'm a strong believer in this new flight model, because in the old flight model 3.4, space break really wasn't that important. You really didn't have to use it. You know, you did a little bit, but you really didn't have to use space break in the old flight model. It wasn't that big of a deal. In 3.5, this is your lifeblood, and being is that it is your lifeblood, and the way that you can separate heat with your brake and other thrusters, because heat is not total in this flight model. If for you guys that don't know this, heat is individual per thruster, and then when that thruster overheats, it's going to cause your ship to overheat. But you can counter that by just using another thruster, right? Or brake. So you can kind of split your heat, like instead of stopping, like let's say we wanted to go really fast here and then turn around. So like instead of, you can kind of split your heat. Now I'm using boost to kind of stop, and now I'm going to use brake. Again, I'm splitting my heat between two sections there. And because I have my space brake on my mouse, I feel like I have better control, because now it frees up my left hand to hold down D to strafe, or E to roll. I can focus on flying my ship while braking, you see. And if brake is anywhere else, like V or C or F or X or something like that, one of those keys, then I'm taking away my ability to hit D and E or S or W, so one of those keys, right? So that's why I feel like space brake is really important to have on your mouse. So definitely think about that, and definitely work and play with that, because space brake is your new best friend in this flight model. Trust me, this is going to be your lifeblood, is doing this. And of course, at the same time, I have decouple bound to my mouse 5 button, which is right next to mouse 4, so I can turn that on and off like this on a whim. Okay. Just like that. So it's very easy to hit brake and decouple mode on my mouse while I'm flying my ship. As you can see here, I'm hitting both at the same time. So lots of control there, and I would recommend playing around with that. That's probably the biggest thing that's helped me in this flight model, was moving my space brake to a hotkey that on my mouse, so I can use my left hand and my right hand for braking at the same time. Okay. Again, so space brake bound to button 4, decoupled mode bound to button 5 on mouse, Strafe up, strafe down, the same as before, spacebar and left control, nothing really new here. And of course the way we move has changed. Now it's just like, in 3.4 there was really two ways of flying. You could actually do this in 3.4. You could have taken your throttle and just bound W to throttle forward and S to throttle back, okay? In fact, that's what joystick users did, especially like dual joystick users in 3.4. So 3.5 just kind of makes keyboard users like that, okay? So you have no more basic toggle anymore, or I guess the limiter with cruise control is now that, but you have to use mouse wheel to control it, which is really, really strange. But again, you know, use your limiter wisely, guys. You don't want it on all the time. And I definitely also, by the way, over here, I do speed limiter defaults on, no. Okay, you always want to start with it off, because when you fly you want to have maximum movement. Let's say you're trying to take off very fast and go up into atmosphere, trying to get away from somebody or something like that. This is going to slow you down, so always make sure that that defaults off by choosing no there. Okay, I forgot, that's very important. So anyways, we're going to keep going, but again, this is mainly just the same thing as before, guys. I haven't really done anything here. Oh, ESP toggle caps lock, very important to do. Sometimes ESP is vicious and it's just bad, and you're gonna feel like, man, I can't get there because there's like a magnet pushing me away from the pip. If that's ever the case for you, just hit caps lock. It'll turn off ESP, you can get back on the pip, and then when you get back on the pip, if you don't like the new speed that you've been given, just click it back on, caps lock again, and now you're back in the center of the pip, so ESP is good, and you've hooked it, and now you can kind of shoot, okay? But sometimes in this flight model, ESP can be overwhelming. Definitely bind it to caps lock so you can toggle it on and off at a whim. I've also found that there's no setting, like there's no HUD for it on your or there's no icon for it on your HUD, I should say. So, and I've also found that as soon as you target somebody else, ESP is right back toggled on. So you're gonna have to, like, so if you target somebody and turn it off and then retarget somebody else over here, you're gonna have to turn it off again if you like that. Just saying. That's just kind of the way it works right now. But it does help to have it on that toggle, so you can turn it on and off when you're feeling kind of inhibited by ESP, because again, in this flight model, the layers of auto aim will kind of mess with you, and this can be a big help. So I definitely recommend this. Afterburner, of course, is still left shift. Landing and quantum is still the same. Very easy to do. No requirements with those hotkeys. Very easy to hit. As far as targeting goes, now they've kind of fixed the issue with gimbals and everything like that, so you don't have to remove these before. Before I had to make a video on when they released it, you had to remove these for targeting. You don't have to do that anymore. I did bind my look ahead back to left alt M. This is what it was in 3.4. So again, I'm a creature of habit, so I changed it back. My cycle mouse aim mode, of course, is right shift. Reticle focus. Now, I changed my reticle focus to R because that's just kind of like my default targeting key, that I look at somebody, I hit it, and I target them, okay? So that's what it was in 3.4, so I changed it back. This is now set to gimbals, or gimbal lock and everything in 3.5, so I changed this, I changed that to J, and I changed this to R, if that makes any sense. All right, and then of course, you have these other targets. What I do is I cycle friendly targets with Y. The only ones I really use here is cycle friendly targets with Y, focus target, and cycle hostile targets with T. Those are my 3 targeting keys. The rest of this stuff I really don't use, guys. I've really not needed it. Okay, so I use 3 targeting keys to make it simple here. I use R just for I look at you and I hit R, I target you. Okay, any color, green, red, whatever, NPC, whatever. Target nearest hostile, of course, is not needed because I can just cycle the hostile targets with T. Don't need to know which one is closest. I can just cycle it and look up here at range. I'm a creature of habit from Eve, so I live and die by my overview, and I kind of use my targeting as my overview. So cycle friendly targets, again, same thing. Just hit Y. Just tap Y and look at my overview. Okay, no big deal there. And of course, if you're really close to me or see you, just hit R. So none of these other hotkeys really matter to me. That's what I use. Cycle subtarget, of course, is my middle mouse button. I do use this a lot when targeting engines because Elite Pip gives you that option. So this is a really good hotkey that I use a lot. Let's see here. really don't use any of these. Target focus is left Alt R. Again, that's just simple, right? Because R is my focus target. This is my target focus, so I can just, okay, very easy to do. Nothing really changed here at all. So radar mode, scanning mode, same thing as 3.4. Mining we don't really use. I don't really use. I've not changed any of these. Turrets, didn't really change anything here. Left this as normal. Weapons, this is what I did change. Now my fire group 2 is not G, it is right click. Boom, there we go. So I always group my guns to 1. Okay, that's why you're gonna be like, what is going on here? I group all my guns to 1 anyways. All right, the only time I have a second grouping is if I have an EMP or I'm using rockets, which is my 2, or I'm using missiles, which is also my 2. So rockets replace missiles on my Gladius, of course, so I'm not going to have any missiles to fire, so they're not going to be in a quorum here with these doubling up like this. And if I'm using missiles, I'm not using rockets, so again, I'm not going to have a group 2, so there's no quorum with this. Okay, so that's my kind of thinking behind this setup right here. If you use a group 2, you're going to maybe find a different missile hotkey, or use middle mouse button for missile lock like normal, and don't use the sub-target hotkey like I use, you know. This could be mouse button 3 here, middle mouse button. This could be mouse 2, mouse 1, things like that, okay? But again, I did change my gimbal assist to J. It just felt natural to do that. I don't really hit this hotkey a lot. I turn it on once or twice, and then, you know, I feel good reaching over my keyboard and hitting J if I need to toggle it. It's not a big deal there. So that's the way I have that set up. Again, my launch countermeasure is G. My cycle countermeasure ammo is V, okay? Shield raise to front. Now, I don't have a numpad. That's why I have the up arrow and down arrow and left arrow and right arrow. And then, of course, my raise top is double tap up, and then my raise bottom is double tap down, and of course my reset is slash. And this is because, of course, I don't have a numpad. Now, I don't actually use these hotkeys though, okay? I don't touch them, and especially not the shield ones that are F5 through F8. What you do is you bring in VoiceAttack. Okay, now this is like an $8.99 program. It's not that expensive, guys. What's expensive about this program is if you buy a bunch of crazy voice packs and stuff like that are like $30 in each to go with it. I don't use voice packs because it just kind of got old. What you do is you make your own, and to do that you just make your own profile. We'll go back to there. You just make your own profile right here. You just drop it down, and this is a free one. If you do want, there's one called Cedar 1.5 or whatever, which is a free voice pack for Star Citizen if you want to look it up. But I just make my own, so you just plus it, make your own, and then go into here. And now it's as simple as this, guys. Let's say the shield left things. All right, so we'll go into here, we'll edit it, and you'll just hit new hotkey down here. If you wanted to make a new one, new command up there, and then when I say shield left, and literally you just type this in, shield left, okay, and then you come down here and you push a key press, and then it's going to bring up this menu right here, and then you just press your key, and in this case it was the left key, all right, and it's just going to push it down for 1 second and release it, and then that's going to give me the hotkey for this VoiceAttack macro. So now when I say shield left, it's going to try to do that. It's going to try to hit left key for me, okay? And I can say shield right, up, down, smoke screen. This is actually a cool macro if you didn't know some of the things you can do with it. When I say smoke screen, what it's going to do is, depending on whatever countermeasure I have on, it's just going to tap G, hold 2 seconds, tap G again, hold 2 seconds, and then in every 2 seconds I'm just going to release a countermeasure now, and that means I can fly while this is going on. I just say smoke screen, and now I don't have to worry about tapping G every 2 seconds. This will just do it for me as I fly. Now I can brake and use my hands to control my ship, whatever, right? So this is a really, really, really good thing to do for those hotkeys, especially like shield front, or power to shields, power to weapons, or shield right, shield front, or things like that. Because those hotkeys you really don't want to mess around with and having to hit F5 through F8 or your numpad keys. So very good things to voice macro. I have some other stuff macroed there on VoiceAttack, but I really don't use it, like launch missiles and stuff like that. I just use the hotkeys. I set it up as a just-in-case feature, you know, just to kind of test all that stuff out. The main stuff I really use VoiceAttack for is, again, raising the shield levels, firing that smoke screen, or switching power from weapons, shields, or thrusters, things like that. That's really, really, really the best thing about VoiceAttack, is it frees up you from having to use these hotkeys while in flight. So moving on, power, didn't really set anything here, kept this all the same, guys, nothing really new there. Again, these power distribution keys I use VoiceAttack for, okay, very easy to do. Radar, nothing really set. The flight HUD, nothing really there. Lights are on E. I guess the biggest thing down here that I really set up would be, I guess I changed my push to talk to button 5, so if I'm on the ground or something, if I'm in air, I just talk and have to deal with the decouple issue, but I'll have to figure out a better hotkey for this as I go along. I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet. Probably going to make ESP Alt caps lock and then make push to talk caps lock or something like that later on down the road, but right now this is fine. I don't really mess around with it. But other than that, I really didn't do any other real crazy changes except for this, because these were all the arrows, of course, so I had to make these right Alt plus the down arrow, things like that, for setting those. So if those of you don't have numpads like I do, or I don't, that's a good way to do it, is to make the arrow keys your new numpad, and then just switch these down here under camera to right Alt plus arrows. Okay? And that's really it as far as hotkeys and what I have set up going on. And again, the best things to hotkey, in my opinion, for this flight model are, your toggle for your limiter, so you can control it very easily and turn it on and off, and your cruise control to double tap C, of course, and then of course your space brake in your decouple mode on your mouse. You want the space brake and the decouple mode on your mouse for better control, so you can control your ship while you tap those two hotkeys. And the way I would recommend kind of feeling out this flight model for you guys, because it is kind of a weird sensation now, because before we just held down W to raise our throttle to 100%, or our meter, our limiter, as it were, in 3.4, and then we just kind of left W and S alone, unless we wanted to bring down the throttle, right? In this flight model, it's not like that. Now, some people are going to say, well, just turn on your limiter, turn on cruise control, and then control your ship with your mouse wheel, okay? I would not recommend doing this. You're going to lose a lot of control doing this, and cruise control being on all the time is going to cause some issues. One, it's going to overheat. Two, you never want to set your limiter low anyways with cruise control on, because you're going to lose a lot of strafe. Like, you're not getting max strafe right here at all. As you can see, it's trying to actually strafe over the limiter speed, because having limiter on will do that. So I would not recommend doing that. That's what people say to do. Don't do it, okay? What you're going to really do, guys, is you're just going to have to get used to holding down W and flying at the speed you want to fly at, and then releasing it and then tapping it and doing all that. Or, if you get comfortable, you can set your limiter somewhere. But I rarely use my limiter in dogfights anymore. The limiter for me is just kind of used when I'm setting a speed on a planet where I don't want to go over a certain speed because that fireball effect will happen, or I'm using it to slow down or something like that. You can cap yourself in atmosphere at certain speeds, but like in fighting and stuff like that, I just turn my limiter off and I fly manually, okay? And the best way to do that is to come in here, okay? And you're going to use your limiter at first, and I would recommend doing this. So just turn your limiter on low, all right? Set it to the first notch below the red line, and then just come over here and try to fly through this. Now I'm using a Saber, and the Saber is not the most agile ship in this flight model, okay? But what you're going to do here is you're just going to want to fly through these little gates, and you're going to try not to hit them, okay? And this is for whatever ship you have. Now, if you have a fighter, this is going to be easy. If you have like a Black Cutlass or something, or a Freelancer, now this is not going to be that easy or possible, probably. So this is for fighter training and things like that, agility training. See how many times you can boost through it, see what you can do here, go through it like that. Just use your hotkeys. Just get in a practice. Get in a practice of using your hotkeys and going through these without hitting them, okay? And then you're just going to raise your limiter up a little bit to like the red line, and then raise it higher, and then raise it higher, and keep doing it, and then turn it off. and then see what you can do with boost by just going through it, and then just learn the ins and outs of your ship this way by seeing what your ship will allow you to do, how fast it overheats through these things, and so forth and so on. So again, this is kind of good flight practice for you, is using these big beam things, I guess, as an obstacle course, because there's a lot of stuff to fly through around here, and it's just going to help you get better with this flight model. But as you can see, really, when I want to fly, like the average combat speed in this game is right around here. So when you want to fly at the speed, you just kind of tap W every so often. It sucks, all right, and it's not intuitive, and I hate it. I really wish they would have thought a better way to use the keyboard bindings. What's really crazy, as I'll show you this, is like, let's say we wanted to go a certain speed, and this is something that you need to realize about this flight model too, and I'll go over this really quickly. So let's say you wanted to just fly at 200. What is it? What are we going at? What is my limiter set at here? We'll see what my limiter's set at. Let's say we just wanted to fly at our limiter speed, which is 190. We just wanted to go 190 ms, okay? Now, that's fine. We can just set our limiter, John, right? You're like, oh, Stove, just do this. Well, you really can't, because, look, I'm trying to boost right now. As you can see, I'm holding down S, or Shift on my keyboard there. It's not going to let me boost if you're at limiter speed. This is an issue, okay? So this means if you cap yourself and you're flying at your limiter speed, you're not boosting over your limiter speed. This is going to hurt your agility in combat if you're doing this, okay? And you're going to have to figure that out. You're going to have to, like, drop speed a little bit and then boost, right? Which can be annoying, but in combat this will affect you sometimes, and it's really, really bad. Now, if you just move it up, you can kind of boost. You don't have to worry about it, okay? The really crazy thing about this flight model is, so now you're realizing that you're going to have to kind of tap W to kind of be where you're at and use boost at the same time, because you don't want to use that boost, or you don't want to lose that boosting ability, basically, by capping yourself with a limiter, right? Because that will hinder you guys. I'm telling you that right now. In combat, that will hinder you. But it's crazy because in decoupled mode, you actually get the throttle you want. You actually get like the throttle that would be kind of like the intuitive throttle, whereas like I just hold down W and then it stops where I want, you know? So I can kind of just play around with it. And this is what it should be for keyboard and mouse users, but they didn't give it to us like that. That's on decoupled mode for some reason. And then we have to deal with the limiter and things like this. So again, I wouldn't use the limiter, especially if you're going to use the limiter for combat. Let's say you wanted to keep combat speeds around 400 or something like that, like 450. You're not going to want to cap your limiter at 450. You're going to want to say, okay, but you're going to want to put your limiter like up here. So that way you can kind of monitor yourself, not let you go any faster than the 450, but you'll always have some boost ability. But again, I would recommend learning to fly in combat with the limiter off, guys. Really, don't use the limiter unless you need to, you know, in atmosphere slow down or something below a certain speed, or, you know, you're cruise controlling a certain speed like this. It's really good to use with cruise control for that reason. You don't have to use it for cruise control if you turn off the limiter. Cruise control just sets to max, by the way. But for using cruise control, it is really good. Just if you want to like flying somewhere and you don't want to like run into something and you want to go a certain speed, it's fine, okay? But again, I would really strongly come in here, or recommend come in here and play around in free flight around this little obstacle course with your ship, and just see about the maneuverability. Also, know that overheating your thrusters on certain ships are good, as opposed to some other ships. Like the Arrow, it makes it more drifty. The Gladius, it actually makes it better. The Saber, it makes it better. So, and you overheat them, or overclock them, I'm sorry, by dragging the little bar right here over. I mean, you'll have to do this to every single one, of course, but this does give you a little bit more control, because it's going to give you more power to those thrusters. So now we can have our main thrusters are more powerful. Our braking is more powerful because our retro thrusters are more powerful, as you can see. Now it does overheat a little bit faster, and also if you do have a Saber, I want you to understand, and I'll just say this really quickly before I end this video, that your Saber is bugged right now. There's a lot of bugs with this flight model as far as heat is concerned. EMP ships are kind of bugged right now, but the Saber's really bugged. I have stock components on this Saber, and what you're going to see here in a second is I'm going to turn my limiter off. We're going to boost to full in a straight line, and I just want you to watch down here at the shields, No other ship does this, and you're going to be shocked. So we'll just get a boost to full, and around 900 ms, you're going to look at the shields, and something crazy is going to happen. Oh, they're going to drop. So now we have no shields because we've boosted to full. No other ship in the game does this, guys. You can try it for yourself. Now, to fix this, you just put on new bracers on your Saber. We're going to run into the wall there. But to fix this issue, you're going to have to put new coolers, which are, you have bracers stock. If you upgrade them to Endo, Vapor Block, or Polar, it fixes the issue right away. But in combat, if you boost too much, because this does translate to boost overall as well, so if you're just tapping boost here and there every couple of seconds and you boost too much, you will cause your shields to drop. Okay, so the Saber is a must upgrade cooler right away. It's going to cost you 3,500 per cooler in game for those Endos, Vapor Blocks, or Polars. So if you do have a Saber, definitely upgrade those coolers, guys, because it's going to help you out a lot. But I would recommend coming in here and just kind of playing around with the new flight model and your hotkeys and getting used to flying through these things, because again, this flight model is really about circle strafing like this around a target, or doing these little mini jousts back and forth. So I would recommend trying to fly through it backwards, forwards, left, right, up, down. Do whatever you can, guys. But as you can see, when we overclock the thrusters, we do get a little bit more maneuverability through them. I'm able to do a little bit more. So, but again, and we lost our shields there because we were boosting too much. So keep that in mind, that if you have a Saber, you need to upgrade the coolers. It is the coolers. I've tried to upgrade everything separately, the power supply, the shields, and then the coolers. The coolers are the ones that affect it, okay? And that's pretty much going to do it for the keybind video. I wanted to kind of keep it short for you guys, but those are my keybinds. That's what I use, and you can kind of tailor them off of yourself based on what you saw here, and hopefully you learned something. If you didn't, I'm sorry. You're probably a master at the flight model already, okay? So thank you guys for watching, and I hope you enjoyed, and please check out my streams. I do stream Monday through Friday. If you do like this video and want to see more like it, I do put more up on this YouTube account and my Twitch under Combat Analysis link, so be sure to check those out, guys. Thank you so much, and that'll do it for us.